Welcome to Critical Thinking Skills in Science. We're on Chapter 9, looking at the different scientific models. This is session number 2. What we're looking at in this first series is a scientific model proposed by what's called the evolutionary theory. Evolution means unfolding, and so it would be like an unfolding of something that was self-directed, something that was autonomous, independent, something that was within a closed system, and it's just unfolding before our eyes. So that is the evolutionary. And theory, we've looked at that term before. Theory comes from theorein, which means kind of the spectator, and it's a theory is a way of looking at things. So the evolutionary theory is adopting the evolutionary belief system and looking at the world through that belief system and interpreting it according to those parameters. Now, the evolutionary theory comes in two flavors. We have the top one, A, which is the Darwinian version, which was one of the not original versions, of course, because Darwin wasn't alive until the 1800s, and the evolutionary model has been really around since 600 BC through the ancient Greek philosophers. So these are more of the two most recent versions of the evolutionary theory. One is called the Darwinian evolution, and the second one is called the punctuated equilibrium version. Let's get into these, what their tenets are. Okay, the evolutionary theory. Okay, what we're going to look at is, in general, the evolutionary theory. Even though there's two subclasses, there's the Darwinian evolution and then there's the punctuated equilibrium evolution, they are still in agreement as to the main tenets of their theories, their evolutionary theory. What are the main tenets? Their source of reliable knowledge. What is their primary source? Well, they both agree that the only reliable source is human reason. And so it's kind of, all the rest of them are rejected as being inferior to human reasoning. And that goes all the way back to 600 BC, when the original Greek philosophers were making that choice, that paradigm shift. No more religion, no more tradition, no more external authority, no more, we're just going straight for what we believe, what we think is correct. So the primary source is human reason, and there are secondary sources that are allowed, and the secondary source would be human experience through the senses. So this is evolutionary theory. These are the beginning of it. Now, what culture then does this represent? Well, this is the Western culture. So we're looking at evolutionary theory through a Western cultural tendency perspective. What would this tendency then, how would it answer about theology? Well, it's a materialist type of perspective, which means only matter exists, or matter is the basis of reality, and therefore God, if he exists, is a product of matter. And so he is not something that created matter, it's matter that created then him. So he is not the ultimate reality. So in theology then, no, God does not exist. And the study of the cosmos and the Big Bang Theory and all that backs that up and proves it. Ontology, what is real? Well, for some group that is basing their philosophy on philosophical naturalism, then what is their basis ontology is? Their ontology is everything that is natural, everything that is matter, is based, that is what is real. That is the basis of reality, is what is real, and it's within a closed system. It operates within the parameters of a cause and effect, and those causes and effects are always natural and predictable. Therefore, you can extrapolate forward or backwards and know with certainty that this is the way it has happened. First cause. Again, just the name of the evolutionary theory is a natural unfolding of matter with common ancestry. So in other words, this system, both these models are looking at that everything is related, that it all started with a very simple beginning, and then as everything began to unfold slowly and gradually and through different methods, then this here produced all the ancestry that is, and all the ancestry has a common ancestry to it from a very beginning point. The evolutionary core beliefs, and this is what we've gone over before in a Western house, Western science house. The core belief number one is that the natural world is all that exists, and that is their core assumption. Number two, the cosmos consists only of natural elements, and that again is a corollary or just a common response, in that the natural world, if the natural world is all that exists, then the cosmos consists only of natural elements. Number three, the core belief is the cosmos. How does it function? It functions according to natural processes. So once you see something and it looks like a miracle, it cannot be, because miracles cannot happen within this system. So even though you might look at something and say, yeah, that does look like, but it can't be because it's outside of our system. So in other words, there's only natural processes. And because there's only natural processes, we come to core tenet number 4. The God of the Bible, or any other God for that matter, cannot in reality exist. So those are the core tenet beliefs of the evolutionary theory. Now we're going to look at the Darwinian version of the evolutionary theory. Their theology, God does not exist. Their own flavor version does not change the theology on it. Ontology, matter, is the basis of all what exists, and it's in a closed system. So even for Darwinism, that does not change their core beliefs. The first cause, again, is a natural unfolding with slow, gradual, random changes to existing structures. Okay, so if you look at this last definition here, the cause is natural unfolding with slow, gradual, and random changes to existing structures. This model, which is the Darwinian version, is most popularly supported today by a biologist called Richard Dawkins, who has a number of quotes that we've used within this series, but he is what is called a Darwinian biologist. Now we're going to go on to the next version of evolutionary theory, which is the punctuated equilibrium version. Again, the theology of it is God does not exist, so it's still within the evolutionary framework. Ontology, it's matter-based. Matter is the basis of all reality. It's within a closed system. There are no miracles, there are no divinities, there's no gods, there's nothing. So it goes pretty much down the same line as the Darwinian version. So now, but here is where it changes up a little bit. In the first causes, it believes in a natural unfolding, but with abrupt, revolutionary, and random changes, creating new structures. Okay, so it's not slow, gradual changes to the existing structures. That's Darwinian. Whereas a Marxist would say, no, we don't want changes that are slow and gradual to existing structures. We want a revolution overnight. We want change, radical changes now. And that is then the different concepts or the different biologies, in that one of them is a Darwinian, which is slow, gradual changes, and the other one is a Marxist that wants radical changes, revolutionary changes now. Now, are those differences between those two models because of the evidence? No. The differences between those two models is how the evidence is interpreted. And so it's kind of going back to Friedrich Engels or Nietzsche, where he just says there aren't facts, there's only interpretations. And so these are two different ways of interpreting the same amount or the same evidence, the same world. So the evolutionary theory, punctuated equilibrium, this model is supported by Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge and reflects a Marxist worldview. So now I can understand a little more how different scientists have a little different flavor, because they are incorporating either their political viewpoints, their worldviews anyway. And this is where Stephen Jay Gould comes up with his quote, in that not all reasonable people think alike. It's theory, habit, prejudice, and culture. And so what he is doing is making wiggle room in there for his Marxist perspective of how biology should look, and that it's not a slow, gradual changes to existing structures, but it is explosive, it's revolutionary, it's whole new structures overnight. That's our first analysis of our first two models, because even though it's just one model under evolutionary science, it's two flavors, the Darwinian model and the punctuated equilibrium model. Thanks again for joining me. We're in Chapter 9, Different Science Models, session number 2. You can contact us or communicate to us through those addresses that are on the board. Thanks again.